Welcome everyone to the meeting. This is the only tutorial I'll ever give, so count your blessings while I'm here. Okay, so this is going to be split into two parts. Twine, which is a platform for writing interactive fiction, and then I'm going to be giving you some general tips of things I've learned through my time game writing. So yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Did anyone download Twine / do they have the link loaded? You actually don't need to download Twine. They actually store the information on your browser, so you can do it through that. I just have it downloaded because I use Twine all the time. Let me share my screen. Oh my god, I just realized I have two monitors. I just got a second monitor, everyone. Oh my god, so am I screen sharing my second monitor? Wait, do you see my
Twine?
Twine?
Okay, we see Twine now.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Before we saw someone climbing a mountain.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think I'm screen sharing my second monitor. Okay, so, wait, can I make sure everyone has Twine downloaded, or at least has it open? Does everyone have it open?
No, how do you open it?
There is a link in the Discord that I sent here. I'll send it in this chat. But it's twinery.org/2/#!stories. But I'll just put it in the chat.
Please do. I'm not gonna remember that.
Yeah. How do I expand? Wait, for some reason
Which channel's it in the Discord? I could just get it from there.
It's an announcement. Sorry. Okay. I get what Athena's saying is I can't view the chat at all. I don't know how I can,
If someone asks a question, I'll read it to you from the chat.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just interrupt me then. Just unmute yourself and interrupt me then if you have a question, because I'm not going to be able to see the chat. Okay. So, does everyone at least have the link, access the link, know where to find the link? Okay, so let's start a new story, and I'm gonna call it example story. And so how Twine works is that each box here is a node, and you can do writing in a node. And the great thing about Twine is that you can very easily visualize all of the dialogue choices that you're doing. So when I click on a passage, I can give it a title.
Wait, Emily, sorry. What is Twine exactly?
Twine is this open source platform for writing interactive fiction. So Twine is actually a platform that stands on its own, and you can make entire games through Twine. The very first video game I ever made is I did an interactive journal, and I had little trinkets in the journal, like receipts, maybe postcards. And if you clicked on the receipt or postcard, you play this little interactive story of that time in the journal. So if you clicked on a receipt, you play that scene where the receipt took place, if that makes any sense. So it's its own platform, but I really like to use Twine in conjunction with Unity because it's so easy for writers. And if you are somebody who uses Unity, it's actually pretty easy to build a parser that will read Twine into Unity. I don't have the parser, but someone has made it before, and I'm sure he can give it to you guys so you guys can use it on your projects. So yeah, it's very easy to make though. Someone has made a parser for all of my game jams, whether it's 2 days or 3 days. So yeah. Also, Twine is in HTML too. That's the scripting language. But as someone who literally cannot code to save her life, I took APCS when I was 16 and I'm now 21. I can use Twine, which I think really shows that Twine is for stupid people. So let's open up the first passage of Twine. So each little box, I'm going to call it a node, right? So if I double click, or if I click on this little edit button, I can give it a title. I'm just going to call it intro. I can give it a tag. The tag, by the way, doesn't impact the story. It's entirely for yourself. But sometimes, let's say I'm writing a really complicated story with a bunch of different nodes and a bunch of different scenes. Sometimes I'll give a tag like, completed. I'll add it, and then I can give it a color. You can see it has a color, just so I can organize it in my brain. Okay, I don't have to look at this anymore. I already did it. Or it's really good for, let's say you have a lot of different types of nodes, you can organize it by type of node. So now you can write, oh yeah, so if you actually delete all the text here, this, like the reason Twine is so simple is that a lot of Twine can be simplified. Like Twine can definitely get more complicated than what's written here, but all of this stuff that's written is like the basics of how to use Twine. So if you're ever confused, I'll always open up here. If I click plus passage, it'll create a new node. So let's say I'm writing and I get confused. I'm like, oh wait, how do I bold my word? I'll just create a new node and then I'll say, oh, bold is like this. So always refer to this if you're confused. If you want to make a more complicated game through Twine, you're probably gonna have to look at some tutorials, which I've done before. But considering this is a more Unity focused club, you're just gonna be using the absolute basics. So how I like to do it is okay, so let's write a scene, okay? So let's give the characters a boy and a girl. B for boy, G for girl. So what I'll do is I'll write B : and I'll write, hey, hi, girl. Girl will write, hi, boy. Yes, very sophisticated writing. I am a game writer. I do get paid to write for video games. And the boy will say, what do you want to eat today? Okay, and now we have our first question where we can build a branching dialogue path. And so let's have two options. The girl can eat a cookie and the girl can eat a brownie. So as you can see, what I just did is I put double brackets around each choice. So cookie is its one choice and I put double brackets around it, and brownie is its own choice and I put double brackets around it. Now let's exit. So just click anywhere else. As you can see, you can visualize it, cookie and brownie. And so now you can have her write something like, he goes, good choice. Some arbitrary thing, right? So the boy thinks that a cookie is a good choice, but let's say the boy thinks the brownie is a bad choice. He goes, that's a bad choice. And now you have created your branching dialogue path. So let's actually play test our game, our very bad game. What you want to do is you want to hover over the node that you want to start on, right? So we want to start playing from the intro node and then click on this play button. It opened it in the wrong browser. That's not great. Okay, it'll open something on your computer that looks like this, okay? And so does everyone have this where they can open it up and it loads on their computer? It'll open in like your Chrome, your Internet Explorer, whatever browser source you're using. So you could say, boy, hi girl, hi boy, what do you want to eat today? And let's say we want to pick, we as a play tester are picking cookie. Then he says, good choice. We can also very easily go back to play test our other choice, and brownie is a bad choice. We don't like brownie. This is like the very basic essence of how to write on Twine. There's a bunch of things you can, like, I don't assume that you guys are going to be making games just on Twine, but if you are, you can also change the font of the text. You could change the color, change the background. I won't go through that today because I really don't think you guys are really going to be using it for that purpose. But it's pretty simple. It's just some simple code.
But just to be clear, like you can use just Twine to make a fully narrative game, and you don't need to integrate it with Unity at all. Yeah, that's kind of what Emily is getting at here. So if anyone here is like someone who wants to be like primarily a narrative writer when it comes to games, it's a really good tool for you to be able to like showcase just your writing in a way that's like interactive here.
Also, if any of you got, this is quite niche, but if you guys are ever wanting to be a game writer for your job, having a Twine game is perfect for your portfolio as well. And it's also a really easy way, if you are using Unity, for the coders to literally visualize the dialogue choices. It's so self-explanatory. And what's great about it is that you can master Twine. You can give it to your coder who's never used Twine before, and he can look at it and still understand your dialogue. So let's just close this. Well, I'll just minimize it for now. Okay, so the next thing that I want to go over is, let's say we want to go back in. Like we want the story to come back into one node. So what we can do is we could have, okay, so the boy says, good choice. The girl says, thanks. And now let's have the boy say something like, do you want to take your cookie to the beach? Because we want it to go back in, let's just create one choice right here. So there's not going to be a branching path. We want it to go back into the story. And now it goes down by 1. So now what you want to do is click back on your cookie dialog and copy this. Copy the text that's written on here. So now for brownie is, that's a bad choice. And then the girl is gonna say, wait, no, the boy says that's a bad choice. Well, the girl is, well, it's better than a cookie. And then he's gonna go, whatever. Do you want to take your brownie to the beach? Or whatever question is. I'm just making this up as I go along. So let's take it actually just like this. As you can see, it will go to 2 branching paths, but we want it to intersect. I mean, we basically asked, do you want to take your insert food here to the beach? We just want it to be slightly different because depending on the player choice. So instead of that, what you should do is whatever, do you want to take your brownie to the beach? Click the dash, click the arrow like this, and then paste the dialogue to the other choice. So it's whatever, do you want to take your brownie to the beach? Do you want to take your cookie to the beach? So now, as you can see, oh no, I fricked this up. Where did I go wrong? Oh, I think it's here. I think that's the issue. Oh yeah, so you can't even have a space. If you have a space, here, now it's the right one. The issue it didn't work earlier was because I included a space here, while the other one doesn't have a space just right in the center. So you want to make sure the syntax is completely the same, periods the same, space is the same, and it'll go to the same node. And now the girl can say something like, yeah, I'll take. Yeah.
What happens if you have 2 nodes that have the same option name? So like,
if they have the same option name, then they'll go to the same node. So I'll touch on that later. Okay. Yeah, I'll take it to the beach. Okay, let's just do what Evan said. So, Evan.
Like what if someone asks you like a yes or no question and you say yes, but then yes, later on
that's game... exactly what I was gonna go over. Okay, so I'm gonna create this off to the side. Okay, so I'm gonna, to create a new passage, it's always this lower right hand thing, create passage. I'm gonna just do this for the example. Okay, so we're gonna have just yes, no. It's just gonna be a random choice. No. So now you've used up yes and no as a response. But let's say, yeah, I'll take it to the beach. Want to head there now? Now the girl can, I'll take it to the beach. Let's have the boy say, want to head there now? And now the girl has the option of yes or no. But then you'll see the issue is it goes to this separate thing. And let's say this is a completely separate scene. We don't want it to mesh. How we have it have a distinction is honestly just add a space at the end. Or add, it's just how you do it. And if you have multiple yeses, you just add multiple spaces. That is how you differentiate it in Twine. So now, it's yes, no, but it'll go to a separate one versus interfering with your other scene. So sometimes, let's say, I mean, you don't always want to do this. This is something that you shouldn't do, but once in a while, it'll be fine. Let's say let's say, I'm gonna delete this, by the way. We don't need this. That was just to demonstrate the yes or no thing. You can also, okay, so sometimes the boy will say a question like, want to head there now? Let's have it be a question that makes more sense. What do you want to wear? And the girl can say a bikini, because they're at the beach. Or she could say, it's cold, I want a sweatshirt. But let's say it doesn't matter what she chooses. Like, let's say, like whatever the girl says, you want the boy to have the same response. You can also implement the whole the arrow rule to this. So you could do dash, create an arrow, paste it. And so now, regardless of whether she says a bikini or a sweatshirt, it'll go to the same like node after. So sometimes in dialogue, it's like if they ask you a question like, oh, what do you want to eat? It doesn't matter what she chooses, and you want it to go to the same answer, you can do it like that. Instead of having two separate nodes and having it come in, you can just have an arrow to a new node. Another thing that you want to look out for is, let's say I hate the answer of cookie or brownie. I'm like, this is a stupid answer. I want to have it be salad. I want salad to be an option. So I edit it here, right? Now I want salad. But as you can see, it creates a whole new node, and now it isn't separate to all this other dialogue I wrote. Because sometimes you'll be writing, really long story, and you want to change something in the beginning, but now you're like, okay, this is a whole separate node now. It's not connected at all to the other stuff that I want to keep. So one thing that you should note is if you want to edit any of your choice nodes, you don't want to edit it like this. How you want to edit it is through this. So instead, you should have changed this to say salad. But so sometimes it'll be like the passage already exists with this name. So sometimes if you do like a really roundabout thing, because I always make this error where I edit it the wrong way. I have to like salad 23, put some random thing next to it. Then I have to edit my initial node and now do salad 23. Now it goes to the right node, and then delete the 23, add the period. Oh no, delete the 23. Delete the node that says salad with a period. Now I can edit it salad with a period, and it goes back. So yeah, just as a note, it's always better to edit it in the title versus the just where it is in the text. The next thing I want to talk about is sometimes I'll be so what I do, which I would not recommend doing, but sometimes I do it, is I'll write a linear story, and then I'll go back in my Twine and then add choices in my Twine. I would not recommend this. It's really roundabout, but sometimes I do it if I'm on a really big writing kick and I want to get all my ideas across, but I don't want to think about adding choices because it'll just kind of mess with the flow. So, do you want to take your cookie to the beach is an actual title here. But let's say sometimes, let's say I have two, let me just delete this. Delete the stuff I don't need. Okay.
Anthony, what do you order?
Huh?
What do you order?
I ordered dan noodles. Is that mine?
Emily, there's a question in the chat, by the way.
Oh, sorry. What is this question?
Would it be a better practice to use dialogue arrow unique node ID for each passage and choice? So like numbering your nodes and then giving the dialogue option and using that little arrow like function to map it onto the ID.
I would not recommend it because, again, if you're writing a huge story and you want to look through, you could do quick find here, and I could click the word salad, and you could see. Oh yeah, this is also a really helpful tool because sometimes you write a really long story and you're like, where did I say this one thing? It'll highlight it. But the reason I don't really do that is just so a lot of the times, like let's say I'm like reading through my story and I want to quickly navigate. It's just easier to have the node title be the same. It's just easier to do that. instead of doing arrows all of the time, like it'll make the code unnecessarily complicated, because Twine is a very simple feature, so you should just use it for its simplicity. But sometimes you'll have it. Sometimes you'll have it here. Let me show you a story I'm writing right now to illustrate this example. Okay, this is the game I'm writing. As you can see, it's quite complicated. Okay, so here's an example that I used of this. Also, just ignore how much writing's on the literal screen. I have a node title called HSBF. That's really not a choice. So sometimes so this is something that usually happens when I'm writing a story linearly and then I want to add choices. I'll create a new node. Let's have a spark of inspiration. I'm like, later in this conversation, I want to create a node and have it lead to them getting into an argument, right? So you're writing the intro of your story, and then you're like, wait, I want them to have an argument. So I will create a new passage. I'll create a new passage and I'll write out the argument. And then eventually I want to connect it to the argument, right? I'll title the passage name something like argument. But then the text here will be something completely different, like text here that is completely different. But I'll title it argument just so I know that this is the argument scene and I want to go back. But let's say I want to now have the argument scene come in at this point. Let's just add it. Let's just add it at the end, right? I'm writing the scene. I'm like, okay, I want it to transition to the argument. My character names here are Miles and June. So let's have Miles go, what? Screw you. I hate you. And June is like, I hate you too. Let's break up. And now you want it to go to the argument. Okay? So right now it'll go to I hate you too, let's break up. But you already wrote out this argument scene and you titled it argument. So what I'm trying to say is that the node title is not always indicative of the text that comes. So like, for example, with here, when there's nothing to do, you may as well share your deepest hopes and dreams. That is the actual dialogue that's said. Like it says right here, you can have the choice of saying, well, there's nothing to do, you may as well share your deepest hopes and dreams. But you don't want this to go to, okay, but what I'm trying to say is you want it to go back into each other to get to the argument, but the text here isn't really what's important. You're just titled that argument. So when June says, I hate you too, let's break up, you can have the arrow and you could say argument. What I'm trying to illustrate here is that it doesn't have to be the text explicitly. Like the node title can be distinguished from what actually is said in the node. So I can go here and he goes, June is I hate you, screw you. And then Miles goes, screw you too. And then we can have it go to the
Theodore, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that the same type of thing that you were trying to say before? Just like name your nodes after numbers, that you don't have any confusion as to if two things have the same title, and then you can connect them that way. Is that what you're trying to say?
Like the reason I would not recommend, let's first see, is that what Theodore's referring to?
I would just think of perhaps like labeling the title with perhaps I don't know, something like a tag, but like specifically for the transitions.
Okay, let me show you why it doesn't work to just always name it as the tag. So let me go back to my example story right here. If I labeled everything like 1, 2, it would start changing the structure of my game. So now it says 1 and 2 instead of cookie and brownie. What you could do is you could also do cookie, but then if you wanted to have it that title, you also have to do cookie arrow 1, brownie arrow 2. Like that would work, but at that point, it's just like You could also just delete this and then it would work. Like it's an unnecessary step. It shortens your syntax and it also makes your story easier to scan through. I know like now the story looks really complicated because I purposely messed it up, but like for example, looking back at the story that I wrote, right? Sometimes I'm scanning through so in my story I have a bunch of different things, as you can see. Like I do a bunch of stuff, and I kind of like to order it. So what I did is I actually ordered all of my node, like the beginning of the node, like the beginning of each scene. I actually labeled it with what the scene is going to be about. I know this doesn't make any sense to you, White Rabbit, but it makes sense for my game. And then actually also numbered it in the order that it comes in the game. So this is super helpful for the coders. They can literally look, okay, intro goes first, car scene goes next, lay down scene goes like in this. And sometimes I'm like, okay, wait, I said this thing in the volcano scene, but I want it to have an earlier mention of it. I want it to be foreshadowed. I can just quickly scroll here and I see, okay, this is my Locket constellation, and I want to change the ice cream option. And it's just easier to scan through versus if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, like everything's a number, then I'm looking at my text and I'm like, oh my God, like where is everything? Because once you write so much dialogue as this, you're going to forget that this scene is the teabag scene. This scene is the mountain scene. And you're not going to remember that this node is we love that self-growth. So I would recommend sticking the node titles as much as possible with the actual dialogue, just because it's so much easier to proofread. And when you're writing a really complicated story, it's just so much easier to go back.
I was thinking of titling each node similar to how you titled like the White Rabbit and the numbers, like but for every node.
Oh, right. So that it's I'll just say it's bad. It's like if you want to do it, it's gonna get really complicated. You're gonna constantly be doing like maybe probably arrow, mirror scene 2, number 4, like you're just gonna be unnecessarily typing, and like it's not a good organizational tactic. I'll just say that right now. Like it'll make it so much more complicated for your coder. Oh yeah, because also the thing is that when you run the code through the parser, it'll make it so much more complicated. If you're like it's okay if it happens sometimes, the parser can take it, but let's say you catch an error in your parser, right? Your parser messes up something. It's going to be really complicated if like everything's like arrow, like it's just easier. It's easier for the Unity, it's easier for you, it's easier for proofreading. The only time I will purposely title something like Peach 12 is if it's a new scene. So what I usually like to do is that I keep the entirety of one scene, I'll keep to one kind of tree. So as you can see, my intro tree is a bit longer, right? Let's say I want to do a new scene, as in maybe this is in a new location. Maybe this is a whole nother conversation with someone. You want to dialogue with a new character. That's the only time I'll hit plus passage, and then I'll be like, okay, I want this to go next. Or maybe I'll be like convo with my boyfriend, something that will make me remember it, and then I'll give it like a number, like 3. This is like it comes third in the story. Let me show you another game I did really quickly. Where is it? Okay, so I made a game for Ludum Dare 47, right? And I actually had really good organization here. So I just want to show it off, right? So I usually create a read first passage, and this just has the acronyms, right? I'll say GM. If I ever use GM, it's referring to grandma, G grandpa. And then I'll also organize the colors so they understand. So any node title any node that is purple, it is referring to a flashback. Any node that's blue, whatever it is, right? And as you can see, I organize it super well. The intro node of every single one, these are the flashbacks. Here is, I did flavor text. So I made it all red. I titled it everything, like the item it is. I have a final monologue. I have dialogue at the beginning of the days. And
so Emily,
yeah.
What is your reasoning for like formatting it in this specific way, what audience are you specifically looking for to read like this Twine file?
Your coder. Your coder is the one reading the Twine file. Your coder, sometimes someone, like you might have someone in your team read it if they want to proofread it, but this file is going to be read through a parser. Your coder is going to have to understand it. And so the reason I format this is so anyone can look at this. They might not know anything about Twine, but they can understand this, right? And they look at the read first thing. And let's say like you see GM. Oh, that's the grandma talking. M is the main character. You can read it really easily. It's so easy to visualize because you can literally see when there's a branching path. You can see when it comes in. I made the title super easy to understand. You go, okay, I go day one, beginning of day one. Okay, that's when it happens. In this story, I had a bunch of flashback scenes. So I labeled the flashback. So for this game, I did a 2D, I did a point and click game where you explore an attic. It's kind of Gone Home-esque, if any of you guys know that game, but 2D. And so you pick up items in an attic, and they're some of them have some flavor text to them. Flavor text is like you pick up a teddy bear and the player goes, oh wow, I really love that teddy bear. Or sometimes you'll pick up an item like a bicycle, as you can see right here, and then it will go to a whole separate new scene that has a flashback. So I made all of my flavor text in red. It's so easy to understand. This is also great for your artist too. So if your artist is looking at this document and they're like, okay, I really want to make a record case, but I want to see if Emily wrote anything about the record case. Because sometimes I'll say something like the record case was red, but the artist has to know that it's red. They can look at this file. They can so easily, they'll be like, where's the record case? Oh, it's literally titled that. You can click on it and then you can see what they wrote. So for this one, I said, Grandpa loved David Bowie. So then the artist can be like, okay, maybe I'll draw the record case with a David Bowie sticker on it. And yeah, it's so easy for everyone to read. This is like the ideal organization. I organize this really well. And as you can see, because I wrote this for Ludum Dare, I kind of have it go out, I have it go back in, out, in. But you can have games have really complicated dialogue trees. Like you can have, I try to keep it simple because I was like, playtesting is going to be a nightmare if I make it complicated. But I'll show you this. I made a game. I made this once.
Before you go to this, Emily, I wanted to ask, like, regarding all that stuff you were just talking about with like integrating the Twine into a team like setup. How easy is it for two or more writers to be collaborating on the same
Twine
so file?
One thing that sucks about Twine is that it's not like Google Doc. On Google Doc, you can have a shared Google Doc. I can type in, hey, what's up? And then the other person will immediately see, hey, what's up? So the bad thing about Twine is that you have to just send the document back and forth. It isn't Google Doc-esque. It's very badly integrated. Twine, please change that about this. I would love it if it was like Google Doc. And so let's say I am writing with someone, right? What I usually like to do is, let's say I'm writing with Zoe. Hello, Zoe. I will have a conversation with you about what we want our story to be about, and we'll also create a story Bible. I talk about story Bibles later. Together we will create a story Bible where we think about the backstories of the characters, we think about their personality traits, we think about everything about them, right? So we both have a really good sense of what the characters are like, right? Maybe we'll even write one scene together. But once we actually decide to write out the game, I'll be like, Zoe, you write out scene 2, I'm gonna write scene 1. And then what you can actually do is kind of like combine the Twine files together, and it'll mesh to be one. So what usually happens is I'll start writing a scene, and I'll write like scene 1, right? And then I'll send it to Zoe, and Zoe will start writing scene 2. And then I'm writing scene 3, and then we just keep sending it to each other. A lot of the times, like let's say we have the same file and I send you my file, it'll actually just update your file with what I wrote to. It's really convoluted though. Like it really sucks having to send it back and forth, but unfortunately, like that's just how it is. Twine just sucks like that. But here, this is like the first time I started using Twine. I know this is like the most complicated thing ever, but I made this like comedy story. I was interning at NBC at the time and I didn't like it. It's really sad. And so I had nothing to do. So I was like, what should I do with my work time? And I was like, I'll make a Twine game. So this is so complicated, as you can probably see. So we'll play my game. You're an intern for NBC. You're sitting in a swivel chair and it is hour 6 into your work. You have accomplished almost nothing today. I'm not going to play through the whole game, but like there's so many like, oh yeah. So like, okay, what you can also do. Okay. I'm actually going to play this. You watch an anime. Oops. You forgot your headphones at home. Watch with the speakers on. I'm not going to read all of this, but let's just pretend I wrote this. And but the ending is you have destroyed NBC as we know it. Start over. I just wrote game over. It's supposed to be game over. And it'll actually restart you to the beginning. So I'll show you how to do that in our
There's a question in the chat.
Oh, what's the question in the chat?
Can you use Git with this? As in like GitHub?
I've never seen it used.
I assume that you can, to be honest, because it's just like an HTML file, right? And like
you definitely can. I just don't know why you would, because it's so easy to just send your
Twine share it like online really easily. Like you shared these things with us just by sending a link. So how do you share the files with each other?
Okay. I'll just do that now. So click on home, click on the file that you want to send. Let's say, where's my example story? Click on this arrow, click publish to file. And then like, I'll just save it on my desktop, like example story, save. And then if I go to my desktop, okay, you can't see any of my icons, but there's an icon on my actual desktop that has the Twine file name. And then you can just easily drag and drop it into Discord and it'll send to someone. You could put it in a Google Drive. It's so easy to just send it on Discord. It takes like 2 seconds. So even though if anyone here is like used to working in a Git workflow, like you can definitely also upload that through Git. Yeah. Let's go back. So one thing, let's do an example story, right? Actually no, this is like I didn't write enough. Let's do my Ludum Dare story, okay? There is a reading glasses scene, but there's 2 options, okay? The grandpa says, "Good night, my sweet pea," and then I can say, "I hate you, grandpa." And then you could say, "I love you, grandpa." And let's say "I hate you, grandpa" is the wrong choice, right? "I love you, grandma," you could say, "Congratulations, you passed the game." But "I hate you, grandpa," that's the wrong choice. You really messed this up. And so you have to replay the whole thing. You can copy the name of the node you want to go back to. It could be any node too. It doesn't have to be the first one. Let's just do it here. Let's have it be the node that I titled King. Oops, you messed up. Game over. But when you click on game over, it'll bring you back to where you messed up so you can replay again. As you can see. So when I created Board at NBC, I always wanted it to go back to the intro node. Do you see, like, there's a million arrows that takes it back to the intro node. And it's because I wanted the player to be able to test out a bunch of different options. You edit your resume. You sigh because of the corporate woes of life. This is the American dream. You stay in Nirvana. The police arrest you. I seduce the police. And then you see, okay, I go to jail. You're like, okay, I didn't like that ending. I don't want to go to jail. You could start over, and then you could send emails like, "You're dead. Start over." And this is very fun. I was very bored when I made this game. But the whole notion is that you can make your Twine files incredibly complicated very easily. Okay, I had just started using Twine when I made this, and I know this is a nightmare to look at. Okay, if I look at this, it's horrible, right? But you could zoom in, and you can even see, like, you edit your resume, it goes to you can either drink water, you see the arrow, pee, or I can sigh because of the corporate woes of life. And then you can see, like, peeing, peeing leads to either dying, or I can text my friend Sherry. And then texting my friend Sherry, you see how many options there are? I can either start over, I can go where freedom leads me, but then we're going where freedom leads me, it leads me to start over. So you could I know it looks very complicated, but you can always pull your node to the side, and then you can see the arrows more clearly. And it's just a great visualizing tool, because let's say you just wrote this. Let's say you wrote this on Unity. Okay, you write this on Unity, and you just have this big long text file of all of these choices, and then you realize, I fucked up one of these choices. I messed up. Where are you gonna go in this long text file? How are you gonna see where you messed up? When it's this complicated, it's just gonna be impossible to parse through where all of the different choices lead. But with Twine, it's so easy to see where you messed up. It's so easy to make it better. It's just, I love Twine. I love Twine. If you are a game writer or interested in interactive fiction, you should use Twine. There are other things you can use to write dialogue. And there's another software you can use, but it's very similar to Twine anyways. You visualize all the boxes. I just like Twine because it's so accessible. I don't know how to code, yet I still feel as if I'm powerful and I can do it. So yeah. One more thing is you can very easily delete passages too. It's just this X button. And you can play your story at any time. Also, it's great because let's say, another thing is, let's say you're writing on Unity, right? You're writing on Unity, and you want to play test your story, but there's errors with your Unity code. You're like, oh my God, what do I do? So then you spend the next hour debugging, and then you play your game, and just to realize you made a typo. It's now taking you an hour to realize that you have a typo. You just went through this long ass text file, and it was awful. But with Twine, it's just so much easier. So that is how you use Twine. Does that make sense to everyone? Did anyone comprehend how that was done? Was the explanation satisfactory?
Yeah, we never really stopped to see if anyone had questions. So does anyone have questions? Theodore says, seduce the police.
If you seduce the police, okay, here. Seduce. If you seduce, wait. If I seduce the police, you slowly pull down your shirt. Is this what you wanted, officer? You decide enough with the teasing. You get naked and give your cheekiest wink. He does not accept your offers, and you go to jail. And then you can start over because you're done messed up. But yeah, this is a really I was not happy at NBC, as you can find out. Yeah, it's just so easy. And I should wait. Let me try to find something on my computer real quick. It's very embarrassing to do because I'm pretty sure a picture of my ex is in this, but I'm just trying to show the possibilities of the app.
While Emily is doing that, I just want to chime in and say, if you are looking at this from more of a coding perspective, you should keep in mind just how easy it is for someone who's purely a writer or only working on the writing portion of the game to do Twine. And with that in mind, creating a parser that works with the HTML file that Twine provides is going to be really invaluable because it allows everyone to stick to their own lane, I guess, in terms of integrating the tools together. So that is something that Emily had in one of her previous games, right? Who was the one who made the parser?
Daniel.
Yeah.
So okay, this is an example.
Reach out to him and see how he did exactly.
Oh, I already reached out to him about it. He gave me a brief explanation.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about it? Are you going to talk about it?
I don't trust myself to talk about it. That's why I didn't do it.
Well, pretty much what I assume you do is like, if you're someone who knows HTML well, which I don't, unfortunately, you would just like search through the document and find the specific tags that indicate like where the nodes are,
that's
and
what he
indicate like how to traverse it, and then you want to work that into whatever kind of dialogue system you currently have working in your game, like, you know, integrating it with the UI box and all that kind of stuff. So yep, Twine's useful.
Yeah.
Okay, what's this thing, Emily?
Okay, so this is a game I made a long time ago. I was in a relationship at this point, which is how you know that this was a long ass time ago. And so this is an interactive journal I made just for fun. And so it's okay, this is a great example. Okay, so this is the first game I ever made. And I did a Twine game. And as you can see, this is like an interactive journal I made. And there are some options. I can click on this forest pass. I can click on this this like ticket, I guess. And if I click on this, if I click here, nothing happens. But if I click on the thing, it'll actually go to the dialogue of when that thing happened. Click here, it goes to it. And I can also go to page. Let's not go to that page. You could go through, like, okay, this is another example. You could go to the kitchen. This is a restaurant, and this is like a gas station. So if I click on this, it'll lead to some interactive fiction thing. And as you can see, like, I changed the background to be green. I like, it isn't just text. I incorporated some pictures. I made the pictures clickable. I organized it so like the pictures laid over the journal where I wanted them to. So yeah, these are some of the possibilities of what you can do with Twine. And I also did this with zero coding knowledge, so it's very possible. And it's a great tool. So yeah, this is just we don't have to play this game. Okay, so does everyone kind of understand how to use Twine? Yes? Great. I made a presentation. This is the next part of our tutorial. That's my email. I thought I put it, where did I? Okay, let's just, oh, here we go. Okay. Okay, this is a presentation I put together. Tips I learned from aggressively marketing myself to game writers on LinkedIn, or musings from someone trying her best. A presentation by someone who gets paid more than minimum wage to write for games. That's me, okay? Let's go through this. Okay, so there's 3 pillars of game writing, right? There's plot, character, and lore. And your story should have at least a little bit of all 3, but it doesn't have to focus on all 3. I think that's like the big thing, right? Like, a game that focuses on all 3 of this is The Last of Us. It has great plot, great character, and great lore. A game where not all of these 3 are included would be Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is a very, very character-driven game. The plot is super simple. Final Fantasy is one that definitely focuses on the character, right? So the plot is just the events that happen, and this has the most overlap with traditional writing. So it's literally just writing a summary of your game. Character is, this is so self-explanatory, but it's like making sure you have strong 3-dimensional characters. But one thing that's really important to note is that if you develop really strong characters, it will come at the expense of the plot. Let's say you have this like adventure game where this like ragtag group of friends has to pillage up a mountain, right? Having these 3 characters kind of sit around a campfire and start talking about their feelings and their goals in life doesn't really advance the plot, but it advances the character. So plot and character don't always go hand in hand. And I definitely think that there are very plot-driven games that don't have to be character-heavy, and there's very character-driven games that don't have to be plot-heavy too. And lore, this final one, is what makes the world feel full. And so lore is like, let's say you took all the plot out, let's say you took the character out, does this world still stand? So an example of this would be item descriptions. In Skyrim, they have books, mouse over text, and in lore, the most important thing in developing a good lore system is a story Bible, and I'll go over that later too. So I divided this presentation in 2 parts. One part is I want to make a game where storytelling is a main part of the gameplay, and another part where you don't want to make story-driven games. So we're going to start with the gameplay one. So the first one of the things you want to do in creating a story Bible is creating character sheets where you basically write like your character's name, who they are, and like a little bit about them. And a big error that I made when I first started creating games, and is also an incredibly common error, is focusing on things that do not matter. Like literally no one cares about it. So when I'm creating character, I want to be like, oh, I really want to get in their head, right? So I ask myself all these questions like, what music do they listen to? What do they dress like? What would they think about the presidential election? Like I think about all of these questions to make them feel real to me. But the issue with that is that no one cares. No one cares. You don't even care. Who cares what your character is thinking about the presidential election, unless that's part of the game. And so what I used to do when I was in the game that I just made, I would create a character sheet, and I'd literally have all of these blanks. I'd be like, what music they listen to, blank. Their hobby, blank. And I just realized that it was tearing me. Like I was focusing on parts of the game that did not matter. And so I would say I heard this advice from a game writer, I think like a Blizzard writer, and it really stuck with me. And it's the only important thing about a character is what they want and why they can't have that thing. A good example of that is like in The Last of Us. What do they want to do? They want to survive. And everything about the game and everything about the characters is about why they can't survive. And what I realized is that if I focus on their goals and motivation, everything that comes, like all of that, those dumb questions, like what music do they like, it'll kind of just like trickle down and like just be clear to you when you're writing. So an example of this is I'm making a game right now about immigrant families, right? It's 2 characters and they talk, and one character like talks about her mom and her immigrant family, right? And so initially I was like, you know, what is their hobby? Like, what's her like, But then I was like, okay, I deleted I just deleted my character sheet entirely. I was like, I don't care about anything that's written. I only care about the fact that her main thing is that she has a bad relationship with her mom, and everything she does informs her relationship with her mom. So then let's say another question I had is, how does the character feel about her boyfriend? That was informed by her relationship with her mom. Because she doesn't get validation from her family, she struggles with getting validation in her relationship. It'll literally just inform everything. Yeah, all the small questions will fall into place. And so, yeah, I would just recommend keeping your character sheet as brief as possible, actually. The next thing is about creating complex characters. So what I feel like a lot of games do, but I think is pretty lazy, is having characters that are just good and just bad. I mean, sometimes if it's The Last of Us, no one thinks the zombies are good, okay? But within that world, there's characters that are good and bad. So some really good examples I think of this is Kenny in The Walking Dead. He has a really bad temper, but he's very, very loyal. Another good example of this is in Heavy Rain. So, okay, I'm about to spoil Heavy Rain. The game's been out for like 7 years, so if you haven't played it, I'm sorry. But so in Heavy Rain, you are solving this murder case, and you get to have the perspective of about 4 characters. So you'll have a scene where you play as the dad, where your kid was murdered. And then you have another scene where you play as some other character, right? And they all are trying to figure out who the murderer is. And so one of the characters you play as, his name is Scott Shelby, and he is a detective, and he's trying to learn more information about the killer. But then the very end, you realize he is the killer. And so we automatically side with the main character. And so that was like one of like I think like one of the most ingenious twists in video game history. Like the player that you identify yourself with is the bad guy. And so like in that sense, I think that's a really good portrayal of a complex character. And The Beginner's Guide is like the Beginner's Guide is not a plot-driven game. It's not a lore-heavy game. It's very, very character-driven, and the main character of it is incredibly complex. I won't spoil it, but he's just very complex. And so something I really like to do is giving a good player a big flaw or a bad character a really good trait. So if we're talking about my video game that I'm making, the main character talks about her mom, right? And her mom is this bad character, right? But in the story, she intersperses really meaningful stories between her and her mom of when they shared a good moment. Like in my game, something I talk about is the mom being a really, really good teacher. And so there's a story about the mom substituting at the girls' school, and everyone loves the mom. Even though the mom's a bad character, she can have these good traits. And so, yeah, like I just complex characters are really important. The next question is...
I just want to cut in, in case anyone here has anything they want to add or any questions. I just want to make sure that we have some like questions from time to time.
I literally just talk my ear off. I'm like, this is my tactic. This is my moment. Okay, yeah. If you have a question, interrupt me. Literally, like, tell me to shut up. I will rant forever. Great, everyone. Okay. The next question is fictional consistency, right? And so this is maintaining, for example, you and the writer write in the same style and write about the same things. This is so you and the art team are on track with what you want. And so what I like to do is I like to have one document where everything is discussed, where we're like art style, story, like da-da-da-da-da. But I also like to have one Google Doc that is dedicated to just a story Bible / outline. And so here are the things that I like to incorporate in it. So an elevator pitch of your game, like a 2-sentence thing of your game. This is so, let's say you add someone new on your team and they're like, I don't know what your game's about. They read that first sentence and they automatically know. A detailed synopsis of the story. So this is like a couple paragraphs where you like say everything that happens. I like to do a paragraph about how game design and mechanics will mesh with your story. So for example, if I keep talking about my own game, there's a mechanic where you get to create constellations in the sky. And so you as the player will see a night sky with a bunch of stars, and you can connect them in a certain orientation that will lead to a different story. And so that's something I wrote about in my story Bible. An outline of the events in your game, and a character list with brief descriptions, which I just went over. And yeah, this is literally like so important because when you're making a game, you're not always talking about what you want to do and this and this and that. Like a lot of it is stuff you do on your own time. And so like the last thing you want to do is you work for a couple hours, your artist works for a couple hours, and then you're like, oopsies, haha, we didn't do this right. And then you have to like start over. It's really bad. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is scope. And I feel like a lot of writers, what they, and I've done this before entirely, by the way, is I'm like, okay, what is everything I like from every video game I've ever played in my life? And let's just like combine that into one game. So I'm like, okay, for example, I think one of my issues with that, I made a game called A Game About the Unsaid. It was this like texting game, texting / visual novel game where you are in a relationship with a guy and your relationship just kind of goes bad, right? So in this game, I'm like, okay, then he needs to be a photographer and she needs to be an artist, and they need to have this argument, but they also need to have this, like, I just started thinking about everything I wanted in that game. And I think that's one of the reasons why that game never came to fruition. I mean, also because of COVID, but another reason. So what I like to do is come up with 1 or 2 narrative goals. And I think you should have 1 or 2 narrative goals, 3 at max, no matter the length of your game. Even if you're making the next Last of Us, if you have more than 3 narrative goals, you have too many goals, okay? And so in my game, the one that I'm currently working on, the two main goals that I have is the complicated nature of immigrant families and insecurities that come with mental health struggles. Those are the two things I really, really focus on. I mean, let's say we'll take a game like The Last of Us. What do they focus on? Surviving and having humanity in a world where everything is grim and you're very like your very like sense of the world is tested. And then the second one is forming a relationship with between Ellie and Joel. That's like the entire game. Like and The Last of Us is like what, a 15-hour game, and I would summarize the entire narrative goal in those two sentences. And so like one thing I really think is that the simpler the story, the better. I think if you want to have emotional complexity in your game, you need to have a simple story and have a, like, it's easier to have a very simple story and have a nuanced perspective than just have such a complicated story where you have to gloss over everything and a single topic can't have the depth that you want it to. I think a good example of this, by the way, is I think the Call of Duty World War II is like the simplest story ever. I think it falls flat in some ways with complexity, but like, let's not talk about that right now.
Can I add something on to the scope thing?
Yeah.
Something else you need to keep in mind, particularly if you're making a narrative-driven story that is like kind of on the scope of the type of projects that we might make in this club, where you don't have all the budget in the world, you don't have all the time in the world, and you might have like team members who are limited in their skills on specific things. And this, you know, applies even if you're not in that situation. As a writer, you need to keep in mind the capabilities of your team to carry out the things that you write. So if you're doing something that's a narrative-driven story that is like a visual novel, that would be something like, make sure you don't have 20 different scenes with like 20 different backgrounds in each scene, where you're like, oh, I need to make sure, like, you know, this needs to happen here, and then you need to be able to see this. There needs to be a communication between you as the writer and your team of artists, because like there's a pretty high likelihood that your artist just simply like will not be able to get that done in the time that you have to make the game. And the same thing can happen like implementing specific things with their coders as well. So
yeah,
this is something that happened to me with Ludum Dare actually just recently. Was we had a really like ambitious storyline going, and we weren't able to finish the game because we couldn't like get everything that was supposed to be happening in the game to actually work, you know? So that is a huge thing that you need to realize as a writer, is that you do have limits on your creativity based on the scope of your project. And there needs to be kind of like a constant communication between writers and other sectors of your team to ensure that everything is going like correctly and everything is like actually viable. And if it's not, you need to have a plan as to how to modify your story to match that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really think that the number one issue any ACM team makes, regardless of whether story is involved, is having a scope that's way too big. Okay. And as like, this is something the officers, we always talk about this in private, about how we look forward to like shooting down the ideas that make our game too complex. So yeah. Here are some mistakes I noticed games make and that I didn't deserve its own slide. So the first one, I think, is having a main character that's too much of a blank canvas. An example of this is Call of Duty World War II. I literally, if you were to ask me to describe a single character trait about the main character, I would say he's nice. And then I'm like, I don't know what else. A good game that I would say is the opposite of that is The Beginner's Guide. As I said, literally, if you want to play a game that's super character driven and has incredibly complex characters, that is the game. But an example that might be more relatable to those who haven't played it is like Ellie is a really complex main character and she's not a blank canvas at all. Games that touch on an issue but not delve deep enough where it's meaningful. So in Call of Duty World War II, they play with this idea that like maybe not all Nazis are bad people. Like so, it plays with the subject of like, are some of these Nazis only in this position because they're forced to be, or do they actually believe the things that they're carrying out, right? And it touches on it, but it kind of just like touches it and then just like runs away. But like if you're dealing with a subject of whether or not Nazis are good or bad people, like you can't just do that. You know what I mean? Another example is in Detroit Become Human. It's a game about androids taking over the world. And in one part of the game is they have androids sit at a different part of the bus as humans, kind of mimicking like the civil rights movement with Rosa Parks. But it's like, if you're gonna talk about something like that, you can't just like, it just needs to be more nuanced. You can't just like put it there and expect people to like draw their own conclusions. Another a mistake I noticed games make, probably a lot of this just has to do with scope, is losing touch of what makes your game special, which is why I think it's so important to have a story Bible, and why I think it's so important to only focus on one or two narrative goals. I think the biggest problem with The Walking Dead is that the first game was amazing, right? You really felt this bond between Lee and Clementine, the two main characters, but as the game continues, they just introduced so many characters that no one cared about. They would introduce them and then make them die, but then you're like, I don't care that they're dead. And you know, that I think that was one of the big reasons why the Walking Dead series went downhill so much, because they just forgot what makes their games really, really good. So the next thing I want to talk about is choices. And so I would say there's two ways you can set up your choices. The first one is you create a story that builds up, you create a story where you try to have a choice that everyone hates. Like you want to, like a choice that just sits at your screen and you're like, I hate this. I don't want to make this choice. An example of this is in Life is Strange. I don't know if I should spoil it. I'm sorry, guys. At the end of Life is Strange, you can either save Chloe, your best friend, or you can save the town that you're in. And it's like, do I save this character who I've built such a good relationship with, or do I save the literal town that I grew up in? And I know like that it sounds so ridiculous. You think like, oh, like obviously you save your town, but at the end of the game, it really is a hard decision to make. Like you do not know what to do.
I want to add that like that whole game, you like trying to stop her from dying, and you like save her life multiple times. So then it's like.
The next one is a game that has maybe like a really similar-ish endings, but the choices are about world exploration, characters, learning new things about the characters. And I think that these games can also be super compelling, even if they don't lead to, you know, really different endings. Night in the Woods is literally my favorite video game of all time, and the endings are very, very similar. One of the big choices in Night of the Woods is like which character you get to learn more about. South Park Stick of Truth, it's like the best. I love South Park Stick of Truth, but like the endings are about the same. And Papers, Please too. You have curiosity about what happens when you do different things, but it's not like you have this choice and you're like, I cannot choose. And another thing I want to introduce that I don't think game writers think enough about is the illusion of choice and lack of choices. So in Emily's Way, it's one of the biggest games on Steam. It's super popular. In that game, so you build up a relationship with this girl named Emily, right? And at the end of the game, you're like, you have an argument with Emily and you just want to make up with Emily, and you want to go out with Emily. You're like, I like, you know, I want you. Okay.
Is this like subliminal messaging? That
yeah. Guys, do you want me? No. So like in the end of the game, you have the choice. You could say, Emily, like we should really talk about us, like what's happening. And then you have a second choice that's, how's the weather? And every person, I don't care who you are, no one's gonna pick what's the weather, okay? No one gives a fuck what the weather is. You're gonna pick wanting to confront Emily. And what happens is you pick that choice, and then it's a game that takes place on AIM, right? So you see the guy typing out the choice, and it says, Emily, I really think we should, but then he deletes it all, and then he goes, how's the weather? And so you pick the choice that everyone's gonna pick, but it really is an illusion of choice. And she goes, the weather's fine. And then you have more choices. You go, Emily, I really didn't like what happened between us last weekend, or watch any good movies recently. Everyone's gonna pick the one about confronting like their argument, but then it just goes back and it says, what movies did you watch recently? And I think that was like one of the most powerful choices ever. Another good example where I think lack of choices is a thing is Outer Worlds. So in Outer Worlds, you can basically do anything. Like you can be an asshole. You can, there's so many different ways to get to objectives in a game. And it really is like a choose your own adventure thing. But there's one part of the game where Parvati, who is a really big side character, she says that she's asexual. She has this big crush on someone, and she's like, I don't know, like, I have never really liked physical contact with some people though, and they always don't really like it about me. But I have this big crush, and I feel bad about it, And you have all of these different options. There's like 7 or 8 options of reactions, but none of them are mean. You can only support her. And I feel like that was a huge thing in a game where you could be an asshole to essentially everyone. But in this one part, the game forces you to be nice. And I feel like that resonated with so many characters. Like the writer was Ace too. And the writer was like, so much of this game is about having a choice, and so much about being part of the LGBT community is about not being accepted. So I just wanted to have this place where anyone could play the game and feel safe about their identity, and it was a big thing. Parvati is like everyone's favorite character in Outer Worlds, and I think a lot of it is because of like these small things of like forcing the character to be nice. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is narrative design. Stories that have no words or very few words, or very interesting ways to mesh game mechanics and story. So Papers, Please is a very story-centered game, but it has almost no words. You play as this guy working for the government, and you can either choose to stick with the government, or you can like help this like underground like terrorist organization. But it isn't really done through words. So you play as a guy looking through passports, and what you can do is you can choose to let certain people through to the other side, whether they're good or bad. That's like a way where there's no words, but narrative design is really important. Florence is a puzzle game about the relationship between two people, and there's no words in it. It's literally just told through puzzles. And Journey is a game that I've never played Journey, but it has no words, and people have very emotional like responses to that game. I also wanted to go over some interesting ways to mend game mechanics and story. One thing that The Last of Us does that's really good, right, is how it teaches you how to shoot. And so you can, like, a lot of games might just be like, okay, press this button, aim with this button, and then click this to shoot. But how The Last of Us does it is you are right smack dab into the middle of this world with zombies, and you are looking around, you're killing zombies, and all of a sudden you see a man flailing on the ground. Like there's like something fell on him, he can't get up, and he goes, my mask. So in The Last of Us, you have to wear a mask, because if you breathe in the bad air, you get turned into a zombie. And so you see this guy on the ground, he's on the verge of dying, there's something crushing his body, and he goes, my mask. My mask broke. Like I breathed in the air. Can you please kill me before I turn into a zombie? And that's when the game teaches you how to shoot. And I feel like that's just literally like I'm fangirling so hard. Like that is so smart to do. Like, why do it in a time where, it's just a target practice? Like do it in a time where it is emotionally intensive, and it feels more powerful when that game gives you that instruction. Another game that I want to talk about is Left on Red. That's a game where it's a texting game, and in order to make a decision in that game, it's a platformer. So you jump on a platform that says like, hey, how are you? And then there's 2 platforms, and it's like good, one is good and one is bad. And you jump on the platform of the choice you want to make. I thought that was really clever. South Park Stick of Truth subverts RPG conventions. I spelled conventions wrong. Let's not talk about this. I am an English major. An example of this is that in RPGs, you can choose a class. You can be like a warrior, a mage, whatever. And in South Park Stick of Truth, you can play as a Jew. And so and then you play the entire game doing Jew things. And so that is an interesting way because the mechanics of the story change when you choose Jew and also impacts the story. Another example is mini games in Remains of Edith Finch. Okay, so common mistakes games make is when the writer is like, no offense, like an old man trying to write as a teenage girl. Life is Strange. I love Life is Strange, by the way, but sometimes the dialogue is really cringy and I'm like, oh no, I feel misrepresented. And so like how I feel about that is like, like when you watch those really bad rom-coms on Netflix, all the ones that Noah Centineo's in, and you're like, literally life is not like this. And sometimes you can suspend your disbelief, but then you're like, no, like you put your foot down and you're like, this is stupid. That is a common mistake in games all of the time. I feel like Life is Strange is like the most, like the biggest example of it. And I don't know if it's the Life is Strange writers or if it's the translator. Someone is messing it up. Because sometimes Chloe will be like, wowzers. Like she'll say something so weird and it's like no one says that. No one says wowzers in real life. Like someone's messing up. So like, or like something that I've personally done is in high school I never wrote dialogue, right? I only wrote poetry. And so I decided to write my piece de resistance. I was like, I'm going to write a play, right? So I wrote this 10-page play and it was actually trash. It was garbage. I'll never read it again. And I think the issue is that I was so in my, I am a poet vibe that whenever I write dialogue, I would just write poetry. And no one talks in poetry. Not even me, a literal poet, English major ass bitch. Okay. So, I feel like the solution to this is I do this with everything. I speak out my writing. I don't say it like this as I'm saying it right now, but I'll whisper it. So let's say let's say one of my characters is a big monologue, right? I'll literally whisper it as I'm writing it. And it will help me figure out the flow of words and how to piece together sentences. Another one is I don't stick to grammar rules at all. I don't even think about grammar whenever I write, because no one sticks to grammar when they talk. So why would you do it just because you're writing it out? I add words I don't use big words. I use them really sparingly. So yeah. Okay. This is probably most of you. You don't care about story games. Narrative, I'm the only one who likes narrative games. Okay, I get it. This is an unpopular presentation to give. So, but this is for you. Okay, this is for everyone else. Story games are lame as heck. Okay, so a lot of games that I see have an intro, right? Let's say you want to play this puzzle game, right? But you want to have a little bit of introduction. And the only thing I have to say about that is that if your introduction is longer than the introduction of Star Wars, it's too long. In that Star Wars movie, they have that text that you know what I'm talking about? Is it the fourth Star Wars movie? If it's longer than that, no one cares. Okay.
They all have it, Emily. Every Star Wars movie has it.
Oh, every Star Wars movie has it? Okay, then any Star Wars movie. I've only seen one. I'm sorry. I can barely sit through a 30-second TikTok, so I will not sit through your writing. Okay. And the thing is that out of all of the types of writing, dialogue is pretty engaging, right? But if it's just a plot summary, no one cares. Did someone ask a question? I saw this light. Did someone say something in chat?
It's just commentary.
Oh, okay. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully they're saying they love this presentation. Okay. Okay, this is the big thing that you guys want to focus on, and it's called barks, okay? And it's lines of voiceover that have no story. So Overwatch, League of Legends, Valorant, Hearthstone, Apex, or even let's say you're playing here, Jinx and League of Legends, right? A person will literally say, I'll give you the time of time's up. It's these small quips of dialogue that just make the story feel a little bit more full, I mean, League of Legends stands on its own without barks, but barks will sometimes be funny and you'll hear it and you're like, they can be really iconic, they can. When I started playing Dota 2, I played this character named I don't even remember. I played a character, right? And it was this like girl with a low voice, and I always, whenever I play, she says this line that says, "I'm coming," and she says it in that tone, and I'll say it in that tone to be funny. They can be pretty iconic, and they're definitely not like, they're kind of bitch work, but it's really important bitch work. And so I decided to write some barks for you guys. So so this is, I've played League of Legends for like 1 hour in my life, but I decided to write it for League of Legends. So Jinx is a hero in League of Legends. She's like really, really feisty. She's very argumentative. She's chaotic. She's just like tries to run the world and kill everyone. And so there's a bark that says, "Stay still, I'm trying to shoot you." Actual writer who's probably qualified to work at write. This is professional writing. I'll give you the count of times up, actual writer. But then I was like, I'm gonna try to mimic this. So she has this ability called Super Mega Death Rocket. So I have one that I wrote that says, "What did you say? I can't hear you over my Super Mega Death Rocket." And she's known to be crazy. So I said, call me crazy one more time and I'll show you crazy. So I wrote that. Okay, so how to bark. Sorry. I'll go over the important parts of this. So barks, there are 5 seconds, and they're usually voiced over. If your bark is over 10 seconds, you should shorten it. Very, very few barks should be over 10 seconds, like very sparingly, right? They should be saturated with the character's nature. So like you can have you're League of Legends, right? And let's say you're running, like let's say a character, a champion is chasing after you. You can write a bark that just says run. But run implies like any character, any champion in League of Legends can run. Referring back to the Jinx thing, like you could tell, like, you don't have, I can like cover the fact that it's Jinx in League of Legends, and I can read this and I can be like, oh, it's Jinx. Like I can read this and like I know who it is for. So this is where you really want to take that like nth like effort of like really taking on the persona of your character, and you should also, it's also pretty important if you're having someone who's voicing it over and it's not yourself, you should include tone, or you can tell them to emphasize a certain word, etc. Also, spreadsheets are really good for barks. Most professional writers write barks on spreadsheets. So barks should be written at key gameplay events. So when a character ults, a killing spree upon dying, even in like a MOBA where it says the announcer goes 30 seconds, that's a bark. Like 30 seconds until the game starts. Those are all barks. Someone has to write 30 seconds. So here is some bark examples from a professional. I think this writer works at Riot, but here are some barks that she wrote that aren't for Riot. She it was a game she was working on, but then it didn't come to fruition, so she could like kind of show them off. And so, they can be really simple, like open sesame, fantastic, wonderful, but they could also be kind of like funny, like executed, like a true professional, handsome, talented. What more could you want? Well, I can't be perfect all the time. So yeah, they're really fun to write. I feel like the big thing is like the first 5 barks, you're like, oh wow, like I'm having fun. Like this is a grand time. And then the next 3 barks, you're like, you're kind of sitting there and you're kind of, using your brain, you're thinking about your bark. And then the last 2 barks, you're like, you literally, you sit like this. You're like, you don't know what to write. That's the bark writing process. Like if you aren't hurting by the last bark, you've truly not written a full sheet of barks. Oh yeah, that's my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes. Okay, so what is your opinion on games which have like hidden narrative? For example, I don't know if you've played Horizon Zero Dawn, but
I haven't.
there's
but just
there's
explain it.
Yeah, there's no spoilers. There's this concept called data points which you can collect in the game, which are background stories. So let's say you're exploring this like old facility. They have stories of the people who used to work there.
Yeah, I know.
And they have like 2 hours of extra content through audio and text, which is completely like optional. So what's your opinion on that?
So, okay, here's the thing, right? There's this like big joke that someone made to me that I really didn't like, but I took it anyways. It's like in World World of Warcraft, this is abundant in the game. Okay, there's so many things. There's item text, there's little character bios that you don't need to complete the game. So this is what I would categorize in the earlier thing of lore. Okay, so each game should at least focus on one. They can focus on two. Very few will have a game where all three are present and really strong. And so how I feel about that is that you never want to create lore that's like you don't want to create really dull lore that you force the player to read through, because not every player is going to want to do that. Like if you're a Let's Player, you don't want to sit there and read item text for like 5 years straight, right? But I think that lore is really good to have in games for those players that want to saturate themselves in every single part and really feel like they're part of the game. So yeah, I think lore is good to include, like text that doesn't necessarily do anything for the story or do anything for a character, but that just like make the world feel like it's there. RPGs have so much lore. Like an example of this could even be like Genshin. I've been playing a lot of Genshin Impact, right? There's a lot of NPCs all around Genshin Impact, and you can talk to them and experience a little bit of their story, kind of like how you said about Horizon Zero Dawn, but you don't have to talk to them. Like in the games, like you could progress through the story without talking to a single one. But I think it's great to have just so the players that want to talk to every NPC can. Like there's a bunch, there's so many different types of players, so I think it's good to have that for the players that like that. I currently write for games, as I said in the beginning of my presentation. I just get like paid like to write for video games. But like one big thing that I've been so done with me. Like actually I feel like one big thing that I need to work on for writing for games is that I write games where the choices are really obvious. So I write for mobile games where one choice is something that the player has to pay for, and then the other choice is the free choice. So like it really depends on the type of game, right? So when I'm writing a game, I'm not thinking about, oh, what's a choice that the player's gonna hate to make and it's gonna tear them apart. I'm thinking, how can I build this story so that when a premium choice is available, that they're gonna want to pay for that premium choice? Like they're gonna feel terrible about paying, about like choosing that free choice. So like it really depends on like the type of game that you're trying to make too. Like there's so many different ways to do stories and choices, and I think that's like the great part about like gaming. You could do what I'm doing right now for my job, which is making choices they want so badly they pay for it. You could have one where like in Life is Strange where they hate it. You can have one that is simply to explore characters more or get some fun side stories, and you can even have it where the choices are limited or not there for a reason. Those are like I think the 4 ways, like big pillars of like choices in games. Does anyone else have an inquiry for me? I want to know what you guys have been writing in the chat. Hopefully really nice things, okay? Because I will read it after this, and I will find you. But yeah, does anyone else have any questions?
Tyler says, what game did you write for? Or what game did you write? Yeah.
Okay, so I currently work at this mobile gaming startup called Dorian. And I write for that, but it isn't out yet, so I can't like show it off. But I also will say it's probably not a game anyone in this club is gonna play or like. I basically write guilty pleasure reading for 12-year-olds. So I'm like channeling my inner like middle school, early high school self, and I write like love, paranormal, crime, like any and like comedy stories geared towards like younger audiences. That's more like definitely guilty pleasure. Like they're not gonna feel like they're not learning anything. It's not an intellectual writing process. Versus I would say like the antithesis of that is the game that I'm making right now. I'm making a game, I've talked about it through this. It's about like Asian Americans and mental health. And so that game I have a way different writing process for that. It just depends on the game, yeah. And yeah, if any of you guys ever want to be a game writer though, like please hit me up. I'd love to talk about it. I have like the world's most important interview this Friday, and I'm very stressed about it. Like I am stressed. It's a game writing position.
By the way, if there's no other like questions about the presentation, we can probably stop.
Yeah, I'll stop screen sharing. Okay, wait, I'll stop screen sharing and I'll stop